Okay, don't get tired. There was someone who used to say, get behind early, that way you have plenty of time to catch up. His philosophy was supported by the assumption that nobody could keep up. You might as well fall behind in a way that makes sense, right? Maybe. It does stand to reason that nobody succeeds at everything all the time. We all fail and we all get discouraged. The trick is not in succeeding all the time, but knowing how to treat our failures. Galatians 6, verse 7. Galatians 6, 7. Be not deceived, Yahweh is not mocked, for whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. For he that sows to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that sows to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them that are of the household of faith. Paul makes a great point of illustrating the differences between acts of righteousness and acts of wickedness in the former passage. He lists 15 different kinds of sinful behavior and 9 virtues we call the fruit of the Spirit. He says don't do sinful stuff. Do bear the fruit of the Spirit. If we do the sinful stuff, things that please our flesh, we are sowing seeds of destruction, and our spirits will be ravaged. If we sow fruits of the Spirit, we will reap eternal life. Verse 7 warns us that of what many call the law of sowing and reaping. When we sow seeds of destruction with the expectation that Yahweh will bail us out, we are mocking him. We are treating him with contempt. I like the way the New English translation says it. Do not be deceived, Yahweh will not be made a fool, for a person will reap what he sows. So we're called to abandon acts that fulfill our sinful inclinations. Instead, we're called to invest in the righteous behavior that is described in the fruits of the Spirit. When we quit trying to make a fool out of Yahweh and do what is right, then we are sowing seeds of eternal life. Now let me be clear on this. Your salvation is bought by Yeshua and his sacrifice on the stake. You cannot buy it with good works. However, every time you sow a virtue, you reap a crop of eternal living value, as certainly as sowing sin does supernatural damage. Our souls are bought by Messiah, but our actions are not irrelevant. There is eternal living value in the good that you do. So we must persist. We must have spiritual and physical stamina. We must endure. We never know how much good can grow from the good we sow. It may seem small to us, even pointless. But Yahweh has a use for every good works you are called to do. Paul says, don't give up. It's hard, there's no doubt about that. In Galatians alone, Paul talks about several spiritual hurdles he had to jump in order to persist in the faith. He had to patiently wait for his own maturity to develop. He had to overcome the hypocrisy of the apostles. He had to counteract the false teachers that were trying to lead the Galatians astray. This letter is one more step in the exercise of virtues of patience and faithfulness, 2 of the fruits of the Spirit. Paul was able to do this because he had faith that in due time we will reap if we do not give up. No orchard keeper ever planted an apple tree one day and expects to bake an apple pie the next. He had to plant, he had to weed, he had to fertilize, he had to water and prune, he had to spray. He had to do 100 things that I don't know about because I don't have his wisdom. He had to do this for many months. Then he gets his pie. It takes patience and persistence to keep the crop of eternal life grow from the seeds of virtue we plant today. But if we give up, the tree will wither before it has a chance. Now here is a few scenarios I want to put forth. Perhaps you decided to attend a Bible discussion group this year. One evening you're tired and don't feel like going. There's something on TV you wanted to watch. It's been a rough week and you deserve a break. But you made a commitment and you're certain that you will be missed if you aren't there. And maybe someone will call and you're going to have to explain yourself. You attend, and while you're there, another attender says something about the Lord's Prayer that you never thought of before. How could you have missed that? It seems so right. If Yeshua really said something like that, then you should follow through. Perhaps it isn't even hard for you to do. But now that you know, you will make a point of it. Your prayers change because the change in your prayers, your faith is exercised in ways it never was before. Yahweh promises to answer prayer, so Yahweh works in ways you've never even seen. It's potentially life-altering, not only just for you, but for others too. It affects not only your life, but because of the change in you, it affects others around you. All because you persisted. You got up out of your chair and you went to that discussion group. Perhaps this year you decided to read the Bible all the way through. You've never done it before. When you got to Numbers, you found the going particularly hard. How much spiritual food can you get out of the counting of men of the tribes who died in the wilderness? But then you come upon the story of the daughters of Zelophehad. In that seemingly insignificant story, you learn that this whole thing isn't about power and the dominance of men, but it's about fairness and the faithfulness of Yahweh. You learn that Yahweh held the rights of woman to be important and inviolable. Whether you are a man or a woman reading this passage, it changes the way you understand Yahweh's view of woman. Because you understand Yahweh's view, your own views change. As a woman, you see that you have more value than some suggest. As a man, you know that women are to be treated as valuable and significant. Either way, you persisted in reading that part of the Bible that's hard to get through, and the seed of eternal life was planted in your heart. It will affect not only you, but those around you. It won't buy salvation, but it will make the significance of your salvation much more clear to you and to others who experience it in their relationship. You are saved, and Yahweh, through his word, is continuing to save you. Perhaps you decided to memorize a chapter of the Bible. You get to a third verse and find yourself having trouble. Your mind is not as agile as some people's minds are. Your partner seems to be able to zip right through it. In fact, he has half done with his chapter, and you're still stuck on verse 3. You work with the wording and you struggle with the order of the phrase. What difference does it really make anyways? Then you realize that you write in your notebook that the more time you spend with that verse, the more it is on your mind. The longer it takes you to memorize it, the more times you have to go over it. Even if the exact wording is struggling to take root, the idea is now regular and permanent part of your thinking. Your mind is being renewed by the word of Yahweh. Did you ever think of that? Yahweh may not want you to be able to easily memorize that verse because he needs for it to be in front of you longer. You are going to face something next month that will require the truth of this verse to be more deeply embedded in your heart than it would if you could just rattle it off without any effort. The point of reading or discussing or memorizing the Bible is not being able to mindlessly repeat it like a parrot. The point is to replace the rotten timbers of sin that support your heart and actions with the enduring sanctions of Yahweh's thoughts. It's tearing out the weeds of destruction we have sown in the past and replacing them with the nutritious fruit of eternal life. The point is letting the water of the word soak and scrub and cleanse us from the filth we accumulated in the world and in our life before Yeshua. If you work on it for weeks and never perfectly get it, the work of Yahweh is still happening. In some ways, it is happening better than if you did quickly get it. What about consistency of your walk? Maybe you decided a couple of weeks ago enough was enough, and you were going to let your light shine. You were going to let the river of living water flow from your heart into your actions. Then you stood there and the griping and complaining about another person started. You didn't quite know what to do. Some of the complaints were legitimate, and you have a couple of pet peeves that everyone knew about, and when they came up, some of the people looked at you. They know what you would say, and they were just waiting for it. What did you do? Did you go ahead and fulfill their expectation by joining in the roast? Or did you shock everyone by saying that you were trying to understand that person better and to improve your own attitude? Maybe you failed. Don't give up. Winston Churchill said, never, 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 never give in. Nobody succeeds all the time. Maybe you got started on your readings and fell behind. So what? Read the next thing on the schedule and catch up when you can. In the meantime, don't fall any further behind. Maybe the section you are reading is hard. We knew at the beginning this would not be easy. Remember, Yahweh calls us to difficult things. We deceive ourselves with the idea that because Yahweh's salvation is simple for us, the entire Christian life will be easy. It isn't. Shaking ourselves from the rest into action is a challenge. But it is in the challenge that we are being made into the image of Yeshua. Perhaps you believe others will think you are strange if you practice your faith, and it's frightening. Change always feels strange, like wearing new shoes, stiff and unfamiliar, but necessary for our health. Think of it like this. The world believes people cannot change. Yahweh insists that he can bring it about. We know plenty of people that should change in one way or another. If we don't prove that change can happen to our own lives, how can we convince anyone else that Yahweh will change them? A change that doesn't take place physically or publicly on some level is probably not a real change. All of us need encouragement from time to time, and we embark on flooding the floodplain. It's hard work that takes patience and faithfulness to Yahweh. Peter denied Yeshua. Elijah wanted to die. Jonah, the prophet, ran away. Abraham lied about his wife. Everyone has bad days. Everyone stumbles. Even the best of us fall. What will you do? Do not let your failure define you or your spiritual condition. Allow Yahweh to take the next step in your life by picking up the pieces and moving on. Working the floodplain vision takes endurance. Embracing the change Yahweh brings, washing in His Word, living consistently with the call on your life are the basic working components of that work. Finally, as you learn things, as you write things in your notebook, show them to the people around you. Share it. Let them rejoice with you in the work Yahweh is doing in your life. Even if you are having a hard time, even if you are already stumbled a little, don't get tired. Don't give up. Yahweh bless.